Hola. Hey y'all. Want to come on today with a important topic. This topic I have been pondering for many years, and um, I find it necessary to bring forward because it's been something that I have struggled with significantly um, in my walk with God, in my faith, and it has led me to tremendous growth because of you know my struggles with it, and leaning in on God to direct me and to strengthen me through it. And I find it relevant enough to offer it up to you guys today in hopes that you will be able to utilize it in your daily lives, in if ever facing such significant struggles. So this conversation today is going to be about witchcraft, you all. I am looking to shine some light on witchcraft because witches hate light. They hate the light. One thing I found out about a witch is that they hate the light, whether male or female. They can't stand to be named, and they cannot stand to be brought out of the shadows into the light. Because when a witch and any type of witchcraft that they do, sorcery, magic, whatever you want to call it, that they conjure, is brought forth into the light, it has no power. You will notice that. If you've ever been attacked by witchcraft, this video was for you. If you feel like you're currently being attacked by witchcraft, this video was for you. If you've ever had any fascination as to what witchcraft is and maybe how to overcome it if it ever presents itself in your life, this video is for you. My experiences with witchcraft have been tremendous. So tremendous that I don't choose to go into detail with exactly what they were. But I was on the receiving end of it, and I have had to learn how to deflect, to protect, to send back, to stand against, and not be moved in the face of such things, and not be intimidated by any of the people that have come upon me wielding such things. I guess what I would want to start out first. Let me just say this: the main reason for me doing this video is because there was a time in my life, friend, when I was bombarded with this. I felt overwhelmed. I felt I was being attacked by people, and that I did not know how to defend myself. I felt powerless. I felt weak. I felt taken advantage of. I felt lost. I felt vulnerable. I felt all of these different low-level energies, this fearful. I felt all these same energies that you feel when you don't have an answer to something that comes upon you. You know, it's like being beat up by someone and you're not able, you got your hands tied. You're not able to see them, and you're not able to move your arms or your legs. And you just got to sit there and take it. And you know within your heart that that is not you, that you would fight back with everything you have, but you don't even know what you're fighting. You don't know how to fight it. You don't know. That's what it's like to be attacked by witchcraft, when you don't have the tools that you need to counteract it. And that is the mission that I have in creating this video for anyone that might be going through something like this, because when it comes upon you, it is very frightening and it is very disheartening. Witches that come upon you look to destroy, to kill, to take you off of your allotted path that God has deemed for you to ponder. They're looking to wreak havoc on your life. And a lot of times they do because you don't know how to protect yourself. Okay? So that's the whole purpose of this video. How did it begin? How did witchcraft begin? So, like I said, in the Apocrypha and in the Judeo-Christian Bible, and even in the Midrash, in all of this Jewish texts, you will see that all of this started with the fallen angels. All of this stuff. Because before the fallen angels, the children were in an isolated, kind of controlled environment. There was no option. environment was purely good. There was no wickedness. Like if you look around the world right now and you turn the news on or the radio, it's really bombarded with a lot of negativity. You got more negativity than you have positivity, whether on the radio, the songs that are playing, whether you turn on the TV, there's wars going on and there's dissension and conflict. Whether you're dealing with people in general, there's more conflict out there than anything. Whereas before all of this, it was all righteousness and goodness. It was no word of conflict. Conflict didn't exist. Unrighteousness didn't exist. There was no division. So because of the division, all of this has been snowballed and snowballed. And when the fallen angels came and they gave the sciences to the children, in the book of Enoch, chapter 6, it speaks to this, about how all 200 of them ascended upon Mount Hermon, and they made a pact, and they decided they would incarnate, and they would lust after the women. That was the reason why they did it, and they went on to teach the women and the people all of this forbidden knowledge. Knowledge of sorcery, knowledge of astrology, astronomy, metaphysics, chemistry, magic, spelling, cutting of roots, making weapons, all these different things they did. And now these children are enamored with just a multitude of creation. Everybody's creating something. But the things that they're creating are not good things. They're not godly things. It goes back to the Bible study when I spoke to the pen. They created competition amongst one another. And, you just because I create something and you create something, if we're both righteous, there will not be any competition. There needs to be someone come up from amongst us that creates that type of energy. There needs to be someone that comes up amongst us and says, that placates that and says, well, Michelle, your pen is better than her pen. I like your pen better because you put more thought into it and you use this type of material and blah, 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 blah. And now that person over there is starting to feel like, oh, and if I don't bridge that gap and say, well, I like your pen too, friend, that righteous spirit will be compromised. And this is what happened. This is Cain and Abel. And I'm not going to get all into that because I did it on the Bible study. Check out my last Bible study. But to stay on point, these are the things that began all of this. So, witchcraft became very much so a norm because you are now able to use your faculties, your will, to create that which you needed to create to get that which you needed done that God would not allow. See, before you only could go through God to get certain things done. There was no wickedness, so it was all flowing. It was good. It was righteous. But once you intermingle the wicked aspect, the competitive aspect, all of the wickedness, God is not going to honor that. So what they did was they began creating entities in the form of written word and then ingesting, invoking energy and visualization into that. They call those sigils. They were creating these sigils, and these things became animated over time. And they just multiplied like anything. You create a sigil, and then now you got this sigil that has an area that it lives in, and it has planets that govern it, and it has likes and it has dislikes. And then you could take it a step further and put it in a clay body and make a clay body out of it. And then you could take it a little further and then you could breathe these things into it. And now you have an animated being that you are considering a god. These are real things that happen. And this is how a lot of this stuff popped off. You had also the fallen angels that descended and that were cut off. Because like I said in my video, this place was popping with activity. It was a lot of coming and going here at that time before the portals got closed off by God. There were many coming and going. And when God caught wind of it, God cut it off and condemned them all here. So whoever was here when God came and cut it off had to stay here. And they made kingdoms in this planet. There are princes of this world that are not godly. They have information. These same princes are the ones that gave the knowledge. So they are the masters. And many of these witches get their power through these princes. It is not as if they are petitioning God to do their will. How do you petition God to harm one of God's children? You and me are petitioning God for the same thing. You telling God to curse me, and I'm telling God to protect me from you. And God sees everything. God sees the source of how all of it started. God sees who's righteous and God sees who's not. These people are going through back doorways. That's what witches do. They go through back doorways. They don't go directly to the source. They go through the middleman because that's what their fathers have to do. They cannot go through the source. These fallen angels cannot, nor can the Nephilim, nor can any of the spirits that were bound here, that were not innately from this realm, that were cut off and bound here for a time, have to do. They have to go through a back way because God made it so. God changed the whole hierarchy of things. So God said, you want to be down there? You're going to be down there, and you're not coming out of here until I come and I say you can. And you cannot go before me. Man must intercede on your behalf. But since they have polluted the whole garden, who is worthy to go before God on their behalf? So they said, well, we don't want to depend on man. Why we got to depend on them? We'll go the back way. And that's what they're doing. So nonetheless, this is how it began, and that is what is going on currently. So when you see witches doing iniquity and all of this sorcery and all this stuff, they're not going directly to God to get it done, even though they're using the source energy. They're going through lesser gods. They're going through back ways to get it done. Just like Balaam and Balak, when they went and they saw these children, God, they had to consult God to get it done. If they wanted to curse the children of Israel, they knew they had to consult God. If they didn't have any respect for God, if there was no hierarchy of things, they wouldn't have never consulted God. What do they care? They would have just pulled one of the gods off of the table, the buffet table of gods, and told him to do it or her to do it. That tells you that there is a hierarchy here in the attainment of things, in the creation of things, in the worshiping of things. They got mesmerized by it. Because, friend, you got to remember, when Eve was in the garden and the serpent came to her, he didn't just come for her. He came with flattery and said, yeah, I chose you. You're great. I've been watching you. You're this, you're that. And, God is not going to do anything if you eat this tree. He knows you're going to be just like him. And I know you're tired of doing the same old over here. Why don't you give it a shot? And she probably didn't do it at first. She thought about it. And then eventually, once you put a thought in someone's mind and life goes on, and they know, wow, I could be just like them. I've always admired this serpent. He's very smart. I'm sure he's right. Now wonder and fascination step onto the scene. That tree that you've been looking at your whole life now looks different. You're walking around it and you're sizing it up, and you're looking and you're saying, wow, what if I did partake of it? And you're tossing around ideas on, if I did it, what would happen? scenario 1 versus scenario 2 versus worst case scenario. The devil knew all of this. He knew if he can get her to buy in, he can get her to get her husband to buy in. Because this is what he does. This is what he does for life. And it wasn't just about her. He got her to buy in. Why? Because she was the head of the lot of the women. Adam was the head of the lot of the men. That's the part that they didn't say in the Bible. Eve was the head of all of the women in the garden. You could say she was the queen, and Adam was the king. So if you go and you get them, the rest they're going to follow. So like I said, this serpent, this devil by way of the serpent is not just coming for you. If you've ever been attacked by any type of witchcraft, the witch that's attacking you don't even know the plan that the devil that is working through her has. She's just trying to feel it, or he's just trying to feel an immediate need, a petty need. But the spirit that's riding her or him is looking at the larger picture. Wasn't just about Eve. It was about all of them behind her that she was in control of. And they succeeded. So now the whole world is turned. Could you imagine living in a world today where everybody in the whole world is a witch? It's already bad out here. It's already bad. You got people out here that you get on the bus and you step on their foot by accident and they go home and curse you. You got people out here, if your husband looks good and he's kind to you, they'll go home and try to break you up. You ain't even did nothing to them. You got people out here mad at themselves. And then they see you and they're jealous and they try to harm you just because they're jealous. You got people out here on the job or in your communities that have acquired things, whether positions or material things that they wish they had. And now you're managing them. And it's your job and your right to tell them certain things that they're not doing correctly. And you do that. Now they want to go and curse you. It's a mess out here. But could you imagine the whole world, everybody? In the Midrash, it said the children were practicing sorcery and occult practices. That's what it said. The children, 7 and 8-year-olds. And this was the reason why they had the flood. This plus many more things. They were mixing people. They were contaminating the bloodline. They were creating gods, witches. In the world now, you don't have many. Well, I can't say you don't have many. You have many that know the science of magic. Many of us use magic every day without even knowing it. But there are many that know, I say some, that know the science of magic. They know how to premeditatively will their intentions into the world. That is magic. Magic is inflicting your will in the world and causing change. That is magic. And it says in the Bible that, not in the Bible, it says in the Midrash that Enosh, the son of Seth, during his times, people started multiplying in the world. This is before the flood. And they were not praying to God. They were not even praying. They were not honoring God. They were praying, but they were praying to other gods, not knowing that they weren't praying to God. They weren't doing it on purpose. This is how far they have fallen. And this is the work of the fallen angels. All of this stuff was to get them out of alignment by way of Eve and her transgression. All these transgressions just snowballed and multiplied into multiple different transgressions, different ways of transgressing. And now you're at a place where you've transgressed so much that you are completely out of alignment and don't even know it. You've forgotten the name of your father and mother. You are not honoring the integrity of the God within you, and you are idolizing that which is outside of you because you are creating. You've allowed all of these different creations at your table, and you're praying to them as if they are gods. And when Noah was telling the people that the ark was going to be built, they all knew that the flood was coming. All of them knew it was coming. They all got word, but they did not believe it would happen because they depended upon the might of their magic. That's what's said in the Midrash. They depended upon the might of their magic. They didn't depend on the word of God. They didn't no longer believe it. They thought that through prayer, they could change the word of God, because that is exactly what prayer is. When you pray for something, you're praying for God to give you something outside of what has already been allotted to you. These children had no need to pray in the beginning. These children were already living in an abundant state. They didn't have a desire because there was nothing to desire outside of what they had. But when all of these different alternatives began to spring up, and these angels began to present them with all these different types of knowledge of astronomy, knowledge of astrology, knowledge of science, knowledge of metaphysics, knowledge of chemistry, knowledge of spelling, knowledge of spirits, all these different things. Now they're at an abundance, a table of abundance and a table of knowledge. And they got so smart that they were dumb. They got dumb to what really mattered. And that's what happened. It was premeditated. The difference between a spiritualist and a witch, like I said, is just the intention. What is your intention? Are you intending? So if someone comes to a spiritualist and a witch and says, I'm having a problem with my husband, he's cheating on me with a woman, and I love my husband, but I don't know what to do. Not even say that. Let's go with another one. I love my husband, but he beats me up. What do I do? The difference between a spiritualist and a witch might do some work to get her husband killed. She defaults to the negative. She defaults to the wicked. Where a spiritualist might say, I need to know more about your husband. Tell me about his childhood. What is his family? Is his mom alive? Is his dad alive? Is his grandmother alive? Does he have any sisters and brothers? Who does he love? How does he interact with his family? She wants to get a visual of him because she's going to do something to try to heal him, to try to heal the situation. How did you meet him? How was he when you first married him? Is he on drugs? Is he drinking? She wants to see what she can do to heal the situation. Whereas the witch is going to hit it from a negative perspective. She's going to be like Jezebel. She's going to default straight to the wicked without even one time thinking, how could I appease this in a positive way? That is a witch, and that is the difference between a witch and a spirit. So we got that out of the way. We already have diagnosed what a witch is, in my opinion, okay? And that is the person that I'm talking about in this conversation. Witches. Why do witches do these things? Why? A lot of times, if you're like me, you want to get to the whys of things, because if I can understand the whys of something, I can pinpoint my response to it. I can pinpoint how I can approach it moving forward. Do I want to deal with this type of energy? Do I find it something that is worthy of my attention? Or do I not want to deal with this because I don't want to have to deal with anything else negative brought on from this? Like, will it multiply in the negative, or does it have the ability to be redeemable? And, when you're looking at the intentions of witches, what makes a witch move in such a wicked way? Whether male or female, because all witches are not women. Okay. There's some male witches, just like there's some female witches. So a lot of times the things that make witches do what they do have nothing to do with you, friend. Most of the time, they don't even know you. A witch is someone that will work on behalf of someone else, and they've never even met you. Never. Probably never even had a word with you outside of hello. So what would make someone do such a thing? Childhood. You don't know what that person went through. A lot of times, witches, friend, that I've noticed, witches are covering up trauma. Deep-rooted insecurities that stem from childhood situations. Maybe they didn't feel accepted. Maybe they didn't feel beautiful. Maybe they didn't feel worthy, capable. And so they went within. They were maybe the outcast. Maybe they got teased a lot. And so they went within and they held resentments from the childhood. And going within and then seeking God or learning spiritual sciences, whether passed on to them generationally through the family, or they sought it on their own through books and through videos or whatever, however they did it, they acquired this knowledge. And this knowledge allowed them, like it did the children that strayed away from the word of God, it allowed them the ability to create change in the world. This is the dynamic at play as to why they do it. It comes from a level of inadequacy, because every witch works in the shadows. I've never met a witch that was just straight up, outright, open, and said, I'm going to do this to you tonight. I've never seen a witch say, oh yeah, I'm the one that did that to you. Never seen it. A witch will not ever do that. They always, by default, work in the shadows. They work in the cowardly realm. There's no other word for it. If you could throw a stone and hide your hand, that's called a coward. Because they were never the type that were strong enough in their upbringing or within their adult life to do those things outright. So they found a way to rest within that ostracized, that overlooked place, and then work iniquity to create change to their benefit while in it. So that's one of the reasons why witches do what they do. A lot of them are misunderstood. They feel misunderstood, withdrawn, loners. But I myself, I'm a loner. I can sit in my house all day and never interact with anyone. It would not bother me. I stay to myself. I don't need a lot of social interaction. But I think the difference is that when you use your energy for negativity, when you use it to harm someone, that is the differentiating factor. And it's all about an intention between a spiritualist and a witch. This is what I've come to know. A witch will default to the negative, where the spiritualist will be posed with the same problem and will find a more positive way of overcoming it. Okay? All right. So a lot of times they become that way because they were ostracized. They were not accepted by the world. So they understand how it feels to be the outcast. They've become accustomed to that. They've become accustomed to staying to themselves, internalizing things. You have these same people in your everyday walk. You got people like this at your job that look one way. They present themselves to the world one way, and then they go home and they rest within their superpower. Think of Superman. Clark Kent, he goes to the office and he looks like a regular guy, like you wouldn't even notice him. And then he goes home and he looks strong and buff and he got his suit on and he can create change as he sees fit. This is the analogy. This is exactly how witches are. What provokes them to do that is a sense of success. They have now found something that they are successful at, that they can get retribution through. They are no longer pushed around and bullied. Now they are the ones that can bully and push around. Or on the spiritualist side, they can protect them. One thing a witch don't like is to be known. They don't want anybody to know. She or he doesn't want anyone to know it's them. I've known this. This is the first thing I have figured out. The last thing a witch wants you to know, friend, is that it was them. Last thing. They hate to be named. They hate to be brought into the light because a witch's power is in the shadows. A witch's power is in the cowardly realms. They work as cowards. And this is a total contrast to the God of Israel. The God of Israel is not a coward. No one can say that. This is a straight up, head up, face-to-face God. He will take the least advantage road to prove his point. We see it time and time again. But all of the ones that work with these lesser gods, they work in a cowardly behind the back kind of thing. It's very cowardly. They hate the light. They hate to be named. You can always tell, look, one thing about a witch, if she's done something against you, two things she gonna do, or he gonna do, that I've seen and I found out to be extremely true. She might not have went to church in years, but if she working some iniquity on you, you best know she gonna get up and go to church on Sunday. Because there are consequences to everything you do, friend. That is the beauty of God. And these consequences are not bound to any particular physical court of law. Because God knows that people are corruptible. God created this thing so that you don't even have to use a person. You're going to hold yourself accountable by way of your heart. Your conscience is going to speak to you. That is the judicial system that we all have within us, is your conscience. She is up doing all this stuff all night long, not knowing, if you're smart, you've spoken to God about it, given it to God, told God all about it, done all the work you need to fortify yourself and to keep yourself in alignment. So that when she's up or he's up at all times of the night, visualizing and talking and working, whatever they working, it's just like them talking to themselves while staring in a mirror. It's all for them. That is your right as a child of God in this life. It is not your role to be beat up by some witch. God has not deemed that over your life, over none of our lives. Yet some of us walk this path because we are ignorant. You can hold them just as accountable. Even more so, you can send all that they've sent unto you back to them 10, 20, 30 times stronger. Let them eat from that plate that they so deliciously and delicately and with such detail crafted. That's the beauty of God. That's the God of Israel. There is a method to this, and we know who they are. How do they do it? They do it by proximity and information. They need to have information on you, your name. A lot of times they'll use your birth date if they don't have your name. If they don't have your birth date, they could use your name and personal items from you. How do you get that? You got to have close proximity to me to get that, right? Yes. A lot of times the witches that are working iniquity in your life are in your circle. They just don't seem like it's them. A witch is the most unassuming person in your life. She will never, ever want you, or he will never, ever want you to know it's them. Because the jig is up. If I have a store and you watch me from a distance, maybe you're an owner of a store next door to me or within the same shopping center, or you know me by some way and you've been to my store to see it and I've seen you and I think you're my friend, or I just think you're a customer, and then you premeditatively plotted on me. And one day you come in there and steal all of my stuff out of my store, not knowing I got a camera in there. And I see you on the camera and I can say, oh, that's such and such. I could hold you accountable on so many levels. I could hold you accountable on a personal level. I could come upon you and I'd be justified. I could come upon you, and then after that, I can call the police and prosecute you. And I will be justified. This is why a witch never wants you to know it's her. Because most of the time, witches do stuff to people that will never think it was them. And this is how they get away with it for a while. They don't get away with it forever. But they don't get hit with it as bad as if you know it was them. See, what goes around comes around is just another word for karma. Karma is real. What you throw out comes back. This is the law of the world. And even though you can delay it, I get it. You can delay it, but only for so long. You cannot delay it forever. That's just how it is. So these are the reasons why she doesn't want you to know it's her. They do it by personal belongings. They can be someone in your house. They can get a fork, a straw, a napkin that you wiped your mouth with, or coughed in. I mean, look, like I said, a lot of times these people that do this iniquity against others are people that are in their circles. And a lot of time God puts it on your heart who it is, friend. But you keep going around them people. You have to create distance from witches. Unless you know how to protect yourself against them. If you don't know how to protect yourself from them, you need to create some distance. You can't be complaining about, oh, such and such did this and that, and you're still hanging out with them people. You got to cut that. How do you overcome? A witch does not have a covering of God. I don't care if she go to church every Sunday. God ain't covering her. She's vulnerable. She thinks she's covered. She's not covered. That's why you let her keep on going with it. Just keep on. You need all of that energy. You got energy vampires out here, friend. A lot of times these witches that make themselves seem like they're ultra powerful are not. They need you to transgress against yourself. Just like Balaam and Balak. And Sennacherib when he sent the Assyrian. They need you to give up your power. They need you to transgress against yourself. Balaam and Balak knew that that they could not touch the children. But they were privy to all the weaknesses of the children. So they schemed and they allowed the children to transgress against themselves. They set traps for them. And the children fell for them and brought iniquity upon themselves. And they transgressed against themselves, and God allowed them to be punished. It's the same way with witches. How do you overcome them? You overcome them by, number one, not fearing them. Fear is a spirit. And when you allow fear of a witch or in what she might be able to do to come upon you, you've allowed it in. You've defeated yourself. Just like Sennacherib did when he sent the Assyrian to come upon the children and intimidate them with this whole regalia, this army and all the armor and the horses and all of this kind of stuff. And then they had this huge reputation of destroying nations and things of that nature. And they came upon the Israelites, and they came upon the recorder, the scribe, and the head of the house. They did all of that for a reason. And they're talking all loud in front of the children, and the recorder and the scribe are like, Lord, can you lower your voice and just talk to us in your language, because we don't want the children to understand what you're talking about, because we don't want them to get intimidated by you. That's the kind of same thing that witches do. Witches like to intimidate you psychologically, because all of this is a psychological game. This psychological war we're dealing with. Spirituality and witchcraft is psychological. Let's get that out here. It's the mind. Nothing can get done without you buying into it mentally. And this goes for witches too. So most of them like to parade themselves around like they're strong and mighty and this and that. Okay. All right. All right. Do not fear them. You need to petition God. You don't need to take it upon yourself to fix nothing. You're not smart enough to fix it. Know your role as a child of God. Don't overstep your boundaries. God allowed them to cross your path for a purpose. And the purpose is to better you. And by them crossing your path, you are going to allow them to make themselves be better too by learning a lesson from how they deal with you. Nothing but betterment comes from things like this. Everybody's going to learn a lesson. So you don't need to be over here trying to forecast out and what you're going to do to them and telling God that God needs to do this, and then and feeling like, okay, God might not do it. Let me call upon one of these lesser gods over here so I can wage war with them. Oh, she did that. Okay, I'm going to wage war with them, and I'm going to call upon this God over here and have him do that to her. Well, all you're doing is lowering yourself down to their level. And now you have brought upon your own self iniquity, making it so that God can't protect you. You've lost your covering just like they have. A witch does not have a covering of God. I don't care if she go to church every Sunday. God ain't covering her. She's vulnerable. She thinks she's covered. She's not covered. The same way with witches. If you're being attacked by witchcraft, the worst thing you can do is try to fight them fire with fire. That ain't your role. Your role is to stay in alignment with God. Your role is to stay humble and seek God. Don't look to be the might and the hand that changes the direction of that thing. That is not your role. Your role is to petition God about it, put it on your altar, give it to God. declare over yourself, cleanse yourself, and repeat the process. And once you have gotten so good at it, you don't even have to do all of that. You need to just speak to God about it. Stay in alignment, friend. Do not fall out of alignment. Your alignment is your covering. You don't compromise it for nothing and nobody. And you watch how God moves. God puts witches in your path to strengthen you. It has been the witches of my life that have made me better. They have made me the best that I am. They surely have. I can remember a time when I was petrified when dealing with witches. I've dealt with many witches. Petrified, didn't know how I was going to deal with it. I brought all these thoughts upon myself that this and that and blah, 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 blah. And God himself showed me one by one his might and his love for me. God is an activity-based God, friend. God cannot show you his might in the good times. If you think this life is going to be filled with great times all the time and that's it, you're crazy. God, you are here to see who you can be. You are here as a representation of God and all of them people that have come before you. And many, they are all rooting you forward. You don't get to greatness from weakness. You don't get to greatness from living a weak life and bowing down and crying and punking out. You get to greatness by facing hard things, by stepping into very frightening circles. You get to greatness by facing the witches of your life and standing tall in it and saying, I will not be moved. Stop harming yourself. And allow God to walk you through it, each one of those situations. And every time you walk through them victoriously, you are building yourself up spiritually. It's like spiritual resistance training. You just get stronger and stronger. So, you'll get to a place where you're dealing with a new witch. And you're looking back and you're saying, man, I remember when I first dealt with this. Now this is like now you're looking at this witch like, is this one different than the rest, or? Yeah, she's pretty much the same. That's how you do it. Align yourself with God. Do not fear. Petition God and put it on his altar. Declare. I put them declarations out there for a reason. They work. It is not my job to sell you on anything. I'm not here to sell anything. I done sold a bunch of stuff in my life and did really well at it. Made a whole heap of money at it. I'm not here to sell you on anything, especially not something as valuable as what I'm giving you. Those declarations mean something. They matter. You can take them or leave them. You will need those declarations when you face many things in this life, especially some witches. Because the first thing a witch is going to come and do is try to tear down and to weaken with fear. You need to have your kingdom fortified. Who are you? Are you really that? Or is that just what you think? Do you know it or do you just believe it? Declarations and activity get you to a place of knowing. And they are highly valuable. And I ask that you really look into them. You memorize them. If not all of them, key ones, they come in. They are essential. And cleanse. I am the spiritual salt bath queen. And I'm proud of it. My spiritual salts I have fine-tuned over many years, you all. Many years. Salt and fire are the strongest purifiers you'll find on the earth that you can use to purify. Fire, immediate. Salt, it takes a little time. But upon the skin, it is immediate. I would highly recommend using salt baths to cleanse yourselves. Speaking words over yourselves while you cleanse yourselves. Many want to say, oh, these declarations are they demonic? Are they snap? Look, see, this is where I get frustrated, because a lot of times, many people that are religious are not spiritual. There's been a divide with the true essence of Christianity. A lot of y'all are just religious. A lot of y'all are just ritualistic. And when I say ritualistic, you're just the type of person that you go to work every week and you do your normal weekly stuff. And then on Sunday, you get up and you go to church and you listen to what the pastor says, and you underline a bunch of stuff in the Bible and you write some notes down, and you sit there and you fantasize what you're going to cook for dinner and get from the grocery store. And you go back home and you forget about all Monday, you forget about all you talked about at church. You don't meditate on the word. You don't hunger for the knowledge of God yourself. You don't open your Bible on your personal time and cross-reference what you heard in church on Sunday or what you were pondering in your mind to get to know God more. It's just Sunday. So now everything is like, oh no, that sounds like that's not religious. You don't even know what is religious. If I asked you the name of God, do you know the name of God? But you're scared of everything. You're scared of things that are actually set by God to help you. You're scared of it. You live a fear-based life out of ignorance, lack of knowledge. Nonetheless, these salt baths are as old as Adam. When he left the garden, got kicked out, and he said, can I please go and get some of these herbs? And he begged and pleaded to the angels, and the angels went before God and asked God, could he go get them? He found them extremely valuable. And he went and he got them, and he used them because they acted as the covering that he lost. All of these things are ancient things. There's nothing wicked, evil about them. What's wicked and evil is the lack of knowledge. Ignorance is wicked and evil. So, I dropped my book. So I had some notes here. I think I've touched upon everything. Salts are extremely important. Salts and herbs. Good protection herbs are, I said it in, this is my third or fourth time doing this video. Good protection herbs are angelica, rue, salts, different types of salts. Dead Sea salt is really the best salt for me. What I got over here? Bay is excellent. And also ingesting these herbs as teas, they detoxify the body. Just like, many people think, oh, I'll just do a salt bath. That's great for the external, but what are you doing inside? What is your thought process like? You have to cleanse your mind too. That's why I said these declarations are great. Meditation is essential. Doing a fast. A fast and a detox are similar. These same herbs you could drink. There's some really powerful herbs outside of the ones I just said. I haven't even named them all. But if you begin to look into these things and become fascinated with them, they will bless your life. Don't be afraid of anyone. God made us all his children, and not one of us does God love more than another. Although there are some of us that God pays closer attention to because they are walking in the integrity of God. They are following the voice of God that is within them. So they have God's attention, while there are others that are wandering in the wilderness and that are focused on things that are not of God. They're lost. These are just tools that I've used to assist you in overcoming some things that I had to figure out the hard way. Don't be afraid. Align yourself. Do not allow anyone to take you out of iniquity. You don't have to be abused by anyone. Allow them to continue in their iniquity, because in doing so, they are just staring in the mirror and speaking to themselves. Give it to God, and God will show you how to send it back. God will show you how to protect yourself without you being iniquitous in the process. You're loved more than you'll ever know. I always tell you that. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other. Peace and love.